So now we're going to move on to the fun part, which is the coloring. So of course, roses come in many colors, as with most flowers. So I'm going to show you the pink rose. So I'm using here a sort of a bright pink called American Beauty. Generally when I'm dusting roses, I would use two types of brush. I use a round brush for the center of the rose, and then I use a flat type of brush for the outside to give me darker color on the edge. But of course, different roses have different looks to them. Some have just a very subtle color, a little bit darker in the middle. But generally speaking, when I'm doing roses, all right, I'm going to start off by, first of all, I've already done a little bit of coloring on this, but I'm going to take some of my American Beauty again onto paper towel using my round brush. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to pounce. So I'm going to use my paintbrush like this, and I'm going to pounce into the middle of the rose to create almost like the eye of the rose. Okay, so just load a little bit of color onto there, and just going to just pounce into the middle of the pouncing is a technique we use with stenciling. So what this does, it sort of just gives you this darker eye. Because in a rose, when a rose is especially outside, light doesn't filter through that middle part, so it will always look a little bit darker. So you're going to just go through into the center. And of course you could do this on all of your roses, rosebuds and things. And then we're going to take the flat brush, and then with a flat brush here, what I'm going to do, I'm going to just brush from the outside to the inside. So I'm just going to just give you this, you see this darker pink just onto the edge of the petals, all right? So you do this on basically all of the visible petals, working from the side like this, okay? And then you're also going to just sort of brush across the top of the petals. So remember, don't load too much color on your brush. Now, of course, this could be a rose variety like, say, for example, Tropicana, where you have a yellow rose and then you're using this bright pink. Here I'm just using a slightly darker color of the rose. Now remember, the basic rule of thumb, I tell my students, you can always add but you can't take away. So if you're unsure about the intensity of the color, once it's on there, you can't take it off. So sometimes what I would do is I would just have a little bit of extra paste. I would just let that dry along with the rose, and then I would then just try that out, just sort of see the color. If the color is too dark, so if you tried this color and it was too strong, then what you do is you'd add cornstarch or corn flour to it. The more corn flour you put this in, so you could take this right through to a very, very soft, almost like the color of the paste, right, like a baby pink color. So that would give me my color onto my rose. Then I usually, on most of my roses, I would always add a little bit of color, green. So I'm actually going to use here, this is a light apple green, and this is a prairie green, which I use some of these colors in my some of my previous videos, and I'm almost just mixing those two together. And then I'm going to just use a flat brush here, and I'm just going to cut in between basically the petals, so just the exposed part of the petal. So you're just going to have this just soft green on the base. And then I'm just going to just brush just like a sort of a stripe of apple green down. The calyx is just going to give you a slight contrast to the color of the actual paste I made this from. And then if you have thorns on your roses, you would put a little bit of the apple green on the ovary, and then just coming down onto the thorns here. And then I would take a little accent color in, for example, pink, and then I'm going to put just a little pink color just onto the tip of the thorn, okay? So when you do like a red rose, you're going to add a little bit of, red to the thorn if you're doing a rose in this color. And then when that's steamed, that will obviously give a really nice look to it, all right? So that's how you would do the coloring onto the flower. And then usually once you've done the coloring, you're going to then steam the rose. So you can see, so you would use a clothes steamer. This is just like a small clothes steamer. You'd use a tea kettle. You'd use a pan of water, but just gentle steam. And then you're just going to just hold the flower about 6 inches away, just rotate it in the steam just for a few seconds. And you see what this does is going to give this nice natural luster, but it's also going to get rid of any dry chalky look. So especially when you're doing a rose, like a red rose, where you're building up darker colors. So that's sort of how you would do the coloring, and you see how you get it. Also, you can see how you get the two-tone effect on the calyx, because obviously when the steam hits that, it's going to set that color. Now, when you are doing for example, the red rose, all right, so this is the red rose here. So this is actually this sort of beautiful blood red color I showed in the beginning of this presentation. And so you can see you get this nice like burgundy color. So what I've done here is I've actually dusted this with ruby. So I've used ruby red, and I've dusted with a round brush in the middle of the rose, and then I brush down, about sort of halfway down. So generally, if I was going to do this, I would recommend dusting the rose first, and then once you dusted the rose, then you add the calyx, let the calyx dry, then you can then steam the whole thing, all right? And on this one here, I'm going to add the green on this rose. I've used just prairie, so this is just prairie green. So you see you can actually put this onto the rose before you, so this literally could just go around like this. Then we could add our calyx, and then you let it dry. You dust obviously on the leaves of this rose. I've used the foliage green and forest green, so I would use a little bit of foliage green on the calyx, and then a little bit of foliage green down the stem on the rose thorn, and also on the tip of the rose bud. And in the center of this, what I've done is just give it a little bit of a contrast. I've also just the eye of this, when I went in with my round brush, I used the ruby red, and then with a slightly smaller brush, I took some aubergine color. This is like an aubergine eggplant color, like almost like a slightly purpley color. And I've just added that as a little pop of color, and that just gives you that beautiful pop of color in the center of your red rose, okay? And then we have, like on the yellow rose here, this is just a sort of a golden yellow. So what I did, I took some lemon yellow and added a little bit of orange to it. All right, so a lot of times I will blend colors. Sometimes you're going to be able to find a color suitable straight out of the pot. But remember, if you want it paler, you can of course use a cornstarch added to it, and that will make the whole thing lighter. So here you can see the finished roses. First of all, we have a beautiful, elegant arrangement of red roses, long stem roses. So these were made on full-length wires. This is the large size cone, the 110 millimeter cutter that I referenced. In this arrangement, I also have some baby's breath or gypsophilia, which is made in my ultimate filler flower mold. And then also the leatherleaf fern, which is in the Flower Pro fern. And there are separate videos, assisted packages to obviously to show you how to make these, but very much a classic arrangement. When you often buy red roses or roses, you get baby's breath and leatherleaf fern. Here we have, this is just more of a, just a very simple arrangement of roses and rose leaves. So here we have the 5 sizes, the tight bud, the mid, the full and fully blown, integrated with various groups of leaves. And finally down here in the yellow rose, we have the small yellow roses, and I've also integrated with there some of the fern. So this is the end part of the fern, just to give you some ideas about how versatile that fern mold is to integrate with roses and other flowers. So I hope you've enjoyed this presentation. I look forward to seeing you in some of my other videos, and hope you will enjoy using the Flower Pro series.